Let's get started. Every file and directory in your Linux system will have three permission groups. There's owner, which are permissions for who owns this file or directory, group, permissions that apply to the group assigned to the file or directory, and others, permissions that all the other users have. And you'll have to be diligent to protect this one. So if you're the owner, you get certain permissions. If you're the assigned group, you get certain permissions, and then everyone else gets permissions. Now I hate theory only, so let's open up an Ubuntu Linux terminal and run an ls with the L flag, which gives us more detail. And we see a directory named files and two files, main.py and myconfig.yaml. But we have all this other gibberish here that we usually gloss over. Well, don't. This info is very important for a secure system. So again, we have three types of permission groups: owner, group, and others. And each permission group gets three permissions: read, write, and execute. They can read the contents, write or modify the contents, or execute a file, or in the case of the directory, list the files in it. So in our example of the files directory above, we can see this. This gibberish here, drwxr-xr-x, means something, and we can break it down here. First, we have this D. That D simply stands for directory. If there's a dash here, it's a file. Next, we have RWX. This is for the owner. What can the owner do on this directory? Well, the owner, Ubuntu, as you'll see the first name here, can read, write, and execute on this directory. Then you have another set, which is also RWX, which corresponds to the group. Anyone in this group has these permissions: read, write, and execute on this directory. So the first name here is going to be the owner, the second name is going to be the group, and anyone in the Ubuntu group can read, write, and execute on this directory. And finally, what can all other users do? Well, they can read and execute only. They can't write. So when you're not given a privilege, you get this dash. So we get R-X. Read, can't write, but you can execute. Now let's look at an actual file instead of a directory. This is a bit trickier. So here in our gibberish, we can actually break it down to dash, RW dash, RW dash, R dash dash. So the dash means it's a file, not a directory. For our owner permissions, we get RW dash, meaning the owner can read, write, but not execute. For our group, we get the same thing: read, write, can't execute. And for all the other users, they can only read this file. So now that you know the permissions, how do you change them? Well, you have one of two commands. The first one we'll look at is chmod. Some people say chown, but it means changing owner. So if we look back at our example, let's say we want to change the owner to
change the ownership of files and directories. So currently I have this directory amrit96.pub. It's a kind of public file for me. So and here we can see it is owned by user Jenkins, and the group is also Jenkins. So I will change this ownership and group to root. So root is a kind of user in Linux which has all accesses. I mean, by default it has all accesses, and it can do anything. It's a kind of super user. So let's see what is the command for that. The command is chown, and again I'll just give this is the root, then we have to give colon, and again this is the root group. So this is the user group, and then you have to give the file name. So the file name is this. So again, it does not allow that. The Jenkins user has limited access, so we'll just use a power command called sudo. So if we check the permissions, I mean the ownership now, so now it is moved to the ownership is changed to user root and the group root. So let me revert it back again. So again, this is how we do it. Again, if you want to do recursively, so for that, let me first create a sample directory or folder. So I just created this folder just now. I'll just create one file, abc.txt maybe. Okay, so we can see again this is owned by test folder, and the test folder contents both are owned by Jenkins user and Jenkins group. So I'll just try to provide this ownership, shift it from Jenkins to root user, root group, and test is the folder. So -r is for recursively. So whatever files and folders are or directories are inside the test directory, it will also change the ownership from Jenkins to root.
you need to know is chmod, which stands for change mode. But in order to understand this, we got to look at the Linux numbering system. Now, the way they do this is binary, but most of us understand it like this. A read gets 4, a write gets 2, and an execute gets 1. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at our file permission here. If we go by that scoring system, then an RW would get 4 and 2, which is a 6 for the owner. The group also gets a 6, and everyone else gets a 4. Because they just have read privileges. So this file permission is a 664. Now, in order to change this to something else, like let's say we want to add the execute privilege for the owner and group, we simply run chmod, the number we want it to be, and then the file name. So chmod 774 file name. Let's try it. So this main.py, let's do sudo chmod. And in our example of a directory, we have RWX, which is going to be 7, RWX, which is going to be 7 also, and then RX, which is 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is a 775. Now let's say we want to remove the need to execute. We can run chmod 664 file name. And here are some common permissions. A baseline for your files should be 644. And a directory baseline can be 755, meaning the owner can read, write, and execute, and anyone in the group and everyone else can read and execute only. The reason why you want them to execute is to be able to list the files in that directory. And then finally, a key pair, like on AWS when you create an EC2 instance, you want to lock down this key pair to a 400, which means the owner can only read and no one else can read, write, or execute. So take a few minutes to look around your file system, like cd etc. You'll notice that most files have the owner and group as root, which is good. You want them to be protected and only available for a super user. But be sure to plan your own created files and directories accordingly and safely. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, consider doing so, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you want to read a detailed guide related to this video, I have the link in the video description. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit my website tutsmake.com.